Is up, good people? A long time no recordy the video. Merry Christmas to y'all. It is that magical time of year. I have been up since 6 this morning. That was not by choice. If you have children, you understand what I mean. I shouldn't have to explain, but my little ones, they got up just a hair earlier than I did. They were excited, and of course, by the time we got up, they had already torn through about half their presents, so we got to catch the back end of it, but still got to see my little ones smiling and just being floored by their gifts. And fortunately, this year we weren't dumb enough to buy anything that required assembly, so they were able to just take it out of the box and play with it. I think the closest I had come to anything as far as assembly goes was connecting. We got my youngest son a Nintendo Switch of his own. He had a light before, a Switch Lite, but he wanted one that he could have the full television experience. He interacted with his cousins a couple months ago, and they had one, and I guess he felt a little out of the loop, so he wanted one, and we got it, and he loves it. It came with Mario Kart 8 and a 12-month subscription to Nintendo's online. So anyway, he was thrilled. My little girl got Apple iWatch that she had been wanting, and we got them a few other things that they really thoroughly enjoyed. We spent a lot of money, folks. Christmas time is always an expensive time of year. I thought I had done a really good job this year of preparing my budget for it. And then my heater went out. It was something to do with the blower motor. Long story short, that was $540 down the tube. Then I had to put 2 new tires on the back of my car. So that was another couple $100. Anyway, I don't know what it is about life, but it seems to have this habit of anytime you have money, it throws unexpected bills at you. That's just how it goes. But anyway, we were still able to do things upright for our children. My wife and I, as far as for each other, we got some little bitty things. I don't think either of us spent more than $100 total on the other, which is fine, because as I've stated before in a previous video, I'm definitely of that age where I'm not super impressed with material items. I'm more about experiences and just having a good time with my kids and just enjoying the family and enjoying life. I know how absolutely sappy and cheesy that sounds, but it's the truth. Anyway, the topic I wanted to get into today, I mentioned it to Iowa Retro Gamer Dad the other day in response to one of his videos, that I had finally taken his lead and followed it, and I absolutely decimated my video game collection. I sold off the vast majority of it. And there have been folks online who have done that in the past, and the first things they get in their responses in their comment section is how much they're going to regret it, and they can't believe they did that. But I said before that when it comes to games, I still love gaming. I just love other things more, and I have things that I value more. And gaming really, even though I enjoy it, on my priority list, it's like either dead last or below dead last. Okay. And I just realized how much money I had tied up in that collection, money that I could have been putting to use for other things like, I don't know, repairing the heater on the house, which is what I did, and providing memories and creating experiences. So that's what I did. I did a video a couple months ago, at least a month ago, where I had sold off my choice titles, my expensive titles, the rare ones I sold off to Arkansas Picker. Hopefully he's going to make a ton of money on that. He should at least, that dude paid me so well too. He paid me 60% of value, which if you've ever tried to sell in a GameStop or another game store, 60% is not what you're going to get for most titles. Like on the high end, you're going to get 30 to 40% if it's something really special. But after that was all said and done, I still had the bulk of my collection left. And what I did was exactly what Iowa Retro Gamer Dad said that he did. I went through them and all of my games, and I said for me to keep them, they had to meet certain criteria. One being they're just games that mean a lot to me, or I just enjoyed them so much that I have a nostalgic attachment to them, or they're games that their premise just really speaks to me and my taste, and it's just something I could see myself playing. And I keep looking that way because I'm looking at my collection, what remains of it as I'm talking. But before I had, probably 10 long shelves full of games. Right now I'm at like 3 and 3/4. And if you look at them on the wall, that actually still looks like a lot of games. But compared to what I had, it's about 75% less than what I did have. And I'm not entirely sure that I'm done. I have a bunch of Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games. And again, I bought the games at the time because they seemed like something I could get into, but I'm not so sure. So I'll probably end up trimming that some more. But I've gone from something like 1,300 games down to maybe top end 400 games. The only system that I did not sell any of my games for, actually systems, I'm sorry, is my 3DS, my original NES, and my Wii. And that's mainly because I didn't really have a lot of games for those systems to begin with. And with NES, if I've bought it, you can be sure, because I grew up with that system, that these are games that I I just have good memories of. Even some lesser known titles like Magmax, little side scrolling shooter, and it's actually a really cool premise. And for a cheap game, I do recommend you go out there and give it a shot. Buy it. It's tons of fun. But I had a good memory attached to that. A friend I used to have in Florida, this is back in the day when you had to rent video games because you were too broke to buy them. And he rented it, and man, we just had a blast playing that game with it. I hate Windows sometimes. That little chime there. Ugh. Telling me some sort of news about some celebrity that I couldn't give less of a rip about. But yeah, I trimmed my PlayStation 3 collection, went from like 200 games down to what I'm looking at it, maybe about 35 games. So yeah, the point being, there comes a point where you have to decide what's important to you. I'm trying. This is my New Year's resolution. I'm going to try to get better about when I'm speaking, especially on camera, to eliminate all the uhs and the ums and the knows. Your professional speakers, when you listen to them, they don't really rely on those little space filler sounds. And I'm going to try to get better about that. But recently at work, this was a week and a half ago, my boss, who's also one of my best friends in the world, comes to me and tells me and the rest of the crew that if we want overtime, it's there. Now, you have to understand, my employer, when it comes to overtime, that is a cardinal sin. Like, you just don't do it. Like, not a single minute. They watch that stuff. They police it very heavily. And everybody else on the crew is like, hell yes, I'm going to get that overtime. It's Christmas. I need that money. Truthfully, I needed that money too. But I was the only one that didn't take it. And of course, the guys, we give each other crap all the time. But they started poking fun of me. Like, like you're not a team player. Oh, you don't, you're just too lazy. You don't want that overtime. And I had to explain to them that time, like video games and everything else in my life, I began to weigh the value of. And I told them, I said, maybe a few years ago I would have been all over that, but now, when you're approaching 50 years old, you you start looking at time a little differently, and you start realizing just how short life is. And I told them, I said, look, I said, I have this day off that I could come in, or since my kids are out of school, I could spend that time at home with my children, playing with them and having fun with them and hugging up on my wife and just relaxing together. Or I could be at work, a place that, even though I love the crew I work with, the job itself stresses me the hell out. And I think that's most anybody's job, if we're being truthful. And I told him, I said, at the end of the day, I came quickly to the conclusion that I had to decide which had more weight with me, my time or my money, which was more valuable. I decided that my time was more valuable. So that's the choice I made. And that's the same choice that I made with the video games. What was more valuable? The experiences that I could be providing my children with the money that's tied up in this collection, or just having a collection there that's doing nothing that I'm never going to play and nobody's ever going to see. So after that, weighing this, and especially in light of the game collecting addiction that I realized I had at my very worst. I mean, when I tell you I was going into Goodwill every day, I was going into the game stores every day. I was constantly hunting for games, and I bought damn near everything except for, like some crappy sports titles. if it was filler, I didn't care. I'd buy filler just so that I could walk out with something in my hand. And that is so self-destructive, and it really doesn't do anything good for your finances. And as a matter of fact, I'm in the midst of paying off all the debt I accrued from years of that pursuit. I was able to recoup a chunk of it by selling, but I still have a lot left that I need to pay off because I did put quite a bit on credit cards. Again, in any addiction, I think comes with that dopamine hit. It's like when you feed it, it feels good for a minute, and then you're over it. And I just realized I couldn't do it anymore. That it was not serving me anymore. It was not. It was bringing me more stress than joy. So I had to let it go. Video gaming itself is great, and with what I have left, there will be times where I'll pull one of those games down off the shelf, and I'll fire them up and I'll play them. But even then, I know good and well it's not going to be for very long. It might be for an hour or two here and there. The last real gaming experience I had was just a few nights ago, but it was something completely different. I had my little boy in my lap. I hooked up to my CRT TV, which I am going to keep because my little boy loves the original Nintendo, and he was playing the fool out of some Duck Hunt, and he absolutely loved it. We played that. We played Hogan's Alley. He loves the light gun games, and just having him just in my lap and just cozied up on me and just watching him enjoy these games and just watching the smile on his face and laughing with him, that to me is what gaming at its finest and most productive should look like. I'm the days where I just hole up for 8, 9, 10 hours in a stretch and play some game. That's over with. I don't even have the desire for that anymore. Anything I play now, it really does have to be something I can just pick up and put down pretty quickly. And yeah, addiction runs very heavily in my family. I believe I've mentioned that before: alcoholism, substance abuse. And while I never got involved with either of those, I did realize I had an addiction. And I think we all have. There's a fine line between a passion and an addiction, and I crossed that line. When you start doing something habitually, and you start spending money that you don't have on it, it's a problem. Iowa Retro Gamer Dad realized that, and he stopped, and he started making videos that inspired a lot of people, me included, to really take a good look at ourselves and say, man, what am I doing? And it inspired me to fix it. Anyway, I will, here in a little bit, I'll shoot some video of what I have left and I'll post it, and you'll kind of get an idea of what I have remaining. But just know that everything you see there, like I said, it's probably going to get cut by a third more by the time it's all said and done. Moving forward, I do still like to collect things, but I have decided to shift my collecting bug, but I will not let it become an addiction. Just to picking up, little odds and ends, trinkets, action figures, and whatnot, like from the 80s and the 90s, the era I grew up in, and putting them on my shelf and just kind of making a hodgepodge little reflection of who I am and the path that I've walked in life and the interests that I have. And really, that's going to be my hobby. I'm not going to have an addiction anymore. I will have a hobby, and I will be very careful about not letting that get out of hand. The second I start finding myself falling into some sort of old pattern, I'm going to stop. My therapist has really been pushing mindfulness on me, and you would think that at my age, I would have long ago cultivated the ability to stop in the moment and just reflect and be like, what am I doing here? Is this serving me? Is this healthy? Is this benefiting me? Or is it causing more harm than good? That's just within the last to a degree, the last couple of years, but really the last few months, I've started really ramping that up. And whenever I start feeling any type of emotion, like I'm feeling it really strongly, other than love, but like, questionable or negative emotions, I stop myself and I think through it. And I say, why am I having this particular reaction? Is it good to allow myself to go in this direction? And if not, I've learned, and I'm still cultivating the ability to just pump the brakes and step back. There have been times in the last couple of months where I really wanted to go into a game store, or I really wanted to stop into Goodwill. And instead, I just kept my steering wheel straight, just kept on driving right on past them. And I found that after I passed them and left them in my rear view, that little impulse I had to go in faded really quickly. There's that biblical verse about resist the devil and he'll flee. That's true. When it comes to addiction, the more you resist it, the easier it becomes to deal with, and the less often you find that the temptation hits you. I smoked a long time ago, my late teens, early 20s. I smoked about a pack a day for 5 years. That was the closest I came to developing any sort of substance addiction, nicotine. And I remember how really hard it was to quit at first. The first week was a nightmare. It took quite a few months before the urges started to subside. But once they did, like I said, each urge was farther and farther and farther between. And I'm hoping that history is going to repeat itself as far as my game collection, game collecting addiction goes. That the more I resist, the less tempted I'm going to be. I think between that mindfulness and having the ground rules set forth, Iowa Retro Gamer Dad, that's like 10th time I've mentioned him, but I mean, he's been through it, and there's a lot of wisdom that you can find from people that have been through some awful times and have been to some dark places. His rule, I believe, one is that he doesn't buy a new game unless he's finished the prior one, and I think he still kind of keeps a balance to where he trades one when he buys one or something to that effect. I believe that's where I'm gonna go with it. Anyway, if you've ever dealt with game collecting addiction, let's talk about it. I'd be interested to hear what your experience has been like. Have you managed to get it under control? Did you leave the hobby altogether, or what path did you take? Anyway, y'all, as I said, it's Christmas, and the only reason I'm making this video on Christmas Day, and you may be like, man, dude, this is Christmas Day, why aren't you with your family? Fair question. My two little ones and my wife, we spent a lot of time with the family last night, with her family and her mom and dad and one of her uncles, but now they're going to spend a couple hours at another one of her aunts and uncles that lives down the road, and then they're going to be back. So it's only going to be like a couple hours that I'm going to be without them. Anyway, y'all, I hope that your Christmas has been absolutely spectacular. I hope it's been filled with a lot of love and laughter, and that you've made new memories that you'll cherish for years to come. If you are unfortunately in a situation where maybe you don't have friends or loved ones, maybe you're lonely, maybe you're hurting, maybe you're scared, like maybe just this isn't the best holiday season, and I know there are a lot of you out there that probably are like that, and I just want to say Merry Christmas to you all the same, and I sincerely hope that 2025 is a much better year for you, and a lot of peace and joy and stability come your way. Anyway, y'all, as always, pick your battles, because not every hill is worth dying on. Take it easy.
You can hear it as it's going up and down. It's whipping up the cream, and that's what you do. You whip the cream until you get whipped cream, which you can tell because it gets really stiff.